lot to talk about. Everybody's talking about the draft, talking about maybe the Washington Commanders did not do well. They gave them a B minus, but I gave them a B plus. And I brought some people on that know what I'm talking about Dave Aldridge on, and Donna's always here with me, guys. I look at it. Okay, I wasn't happy with one thing, and Donna has already said it. I think they should address the linebacker situation in the middle. But they got two defensive backs. One run 4.3, the other one run 4.4. One is big, one is little, one is real fast. Then they got two offensive linemen, which may be the most important thing in the draft. One was a center. He played well, but he's played all different positions. Then they got a big lean tackle at 6'4", 294. He got a lot of growing to do, but at the same time, they can fill some holes. And then on down the line, they go on and get these two pass rushers. That's where they should at least try to get a linebacker to fill that void, get somebody that can play in there. I like the first pass rusher they got. He runs a 4.6. So when you look at this team, was really looking for speed. I give him a B plus. What do you think, Donna?
Hey, Tony, I was talking to some of the fans, and David and I was out there for the first pick for the Commanders, and I think everybody on the board didn't realize that they would go for a cornerback. But as David and I was talking, that all the offensive linemen, the top offensive linemen, were already taken earlier in the draft. So Emmanuel Forbes wasn't even on the radar, I think, for most people. I mean, they may have been on the radar for Martin Mayhew and that group, but nobody even mentioned his name when you talked about the top cornerbacks in the draft. I mean, Christian Gonzalez was right there for the Washington Commanders to pick. Well, he's a big cornerback. One of the top, and some people are saying the best in the draft. But who am I to say? Because talking to some of the former cornerbacks, Fred Smoots and Darrell Green and all of them, they were small. They were 170-some pounds coming in too. And everybody is talking about Emmanuel Forbes' size and everything, but he produced. When you looked at his numbers and everything, he produced as far as that goes. But still, he was not on the radar as far as the cornerback position, but the Commanders are high on that. Like you said, Tony, I look at the linebacker position, who they did not address, but they could not address every need in there. Offensive lineman was one of the ones that they had to. Cornerback was the other position. And David and Tony, I was standing out at the draft party next to Emmanuel Forbes. And like everybody said, he's thin, he's small. I said, man, my legs is bigger than his. But
they bring it in mine too. So why are you talking about it?
I'm telling you, but size-wise, as far as height and all of that, still he produced. So everybody, fans are saying that they give this team a B minus as far as the draft picks. But we all know that you can't tell anything until they get on the field and they start playing. And rookie mini camp is only a week away. But David, we were out there, basically all of us covering the draft, wondering, about this pick, wondering about the picks in overall. But how do you see this draft for the Commanders? Starting with the first pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on a couple of things, right? It depends on how much you like Andrew Wiley. And Andrew Wiley is the guy that they signed from Kansas City to play right tackle, right? So if you think Andrew Wiley is a legit starting right tackle in this league, then I have no problem with them not reaching, because as you mentioned, Donna, the top two or three tackles were all off the board by the time they picked. I think they wanted to take a tackle, but there wasn't anyone to take, or unless they reached for a guy that didn't deserve to be taken that high. And you don't want to do that in the draft. So they took a guy that was right on their radar in terms of a position of need and a position that they needed to fill. And I think I have no problem with the pick. I don't have any problem with their first two picks, really. I mean, look, Forbes played in the SEC. He played against home run hitters every week. Okay. When you're in the SEC and you're a defensive back, you don't get any weeks off. I mean, there's always a first round pick that you have to line up against every week. And he did a really good job by all the metrics, all the available numbers. He played well in zone. He played well in man. He was a playmaker. They did not turn people over last year, and that was a problem for their defense. This guy picks off passes. He does that. So, he has been decent against the run. He hasn't gotten run over. He hasn't gotten injured. You know, he plays every week. And if you look at some of the receivers that were taken in this draft by other teams, look at their weights: 175, 178, 181. So 166 isn't all that less than that, right? So I didn't really have a problem with those first two picks. You needed a slot guy. Quan Martin plays the slot really well. So that was fine with me too. I mean, it certainly leads me to believe that I don't know how you do all this and then bring Kendall Fuller back at the number you're bringing him back at, because you're playing St. Juste. He's a starter. I assume you drafted Emmanuel Forbes to start him, and Quan Martin is the slot guy. So you've kind of shown your hand about who you expect to be out there, unless Kendall Fuller takes a big pay cut. Now, you don't want to lose good defensive backs, and Kendall's still a good defensive back, but they do need to make some moves. And, you know, you look at him, you look at Chase Roulier on offense at center with a big number coming off of 2 straight years of injuries. They drafted Ricky Stromberg, like you guys said. They added Nick Gates in free agency. They brought back Tyler Larson rather. So they got 3 centers. So again, it's math. It's really, I mean, it has nothing to do with.
And you got Eric Bieniemy. You got Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator this year.
So that's your upgrade. To me, like, that's your biggest upgrade offensively, if you brought Eric Bieniemy in to run your offense, like, to me. So I don't, you know, they don't need a wide receiver. They don't really need a running back. They've made their decision on Sam Howell. You don't have to like it. That's the decision they made.
I do like the running back that they took, though, because he got power. Yeah. He's a late rounder. At the same time, he can give them those hard yards that they need in the end that they could not get last year with those people that were really wide receivers and running back. You got an actual running back now, 6 foot 217. He can drop the load on them, and I think that's important. I look at that as good. I look at the center as important because last year they had 3 injuries on the center, and that really just threw off the whole offensive line because the center is calling the shots there. You got to look at it. Offensive tackle, you can never get enough offensive linemen. Yeah. Now, what I want to ask you guys is, by earlier in the week, them denying Chase the 5th year, them getting 2 edge rushers, they already got 4 able people out there. Do you think that Chase could become a trade bait?
I don't, Tony, I don't think so. Because just because you don't know what you have, right? Like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if Chase Young is going to go back to being the rookie of the year Chase Young or the struggling Chase Young from the year before the year he got hurt. I don't even think that last year's doesn't mean anything to me because he's recovering from an injury. I can't judge him off of that year. Like, so with a full off season where he can train and do the things that he's normally going to do, we're going to find out. I think they did the same thing with Daron Payne last year. The exact same thing. They drafted Fedarian Mathis as a possible replacement for him and told him, hey, you got to go ball out. And Daron balled out and they re-signed him. So I think I don't think they can keep Chase and Sweat. They're going to have to pick one of those two. But I think this year is the test year. Like, they're going to decide which one of you two we're going to keep because you can only franchise one of them, I think. Right. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you trade him though, because he might come back and be great again, and that you want him to be great for you.
And like you said,
isn't that a signal? Isn't that a signal when you don't pick up that 5th? If that's something saying you got to prove it to us?
Yeah, it is a prove it. But like I said, they did the same thing with Daron Payne last year. They didn't pick up his option either. Prove it. And Daron proved it. He went out and had a great season.
Yes, he did.
And that's the bottom line. That is the bottom line, like David said, is that this team, I think they were smart in this because, as David said, they don't know what they've got. He favored that leg last year in trying to come back. And even though he played, in that last game or so, you saw some glimpse of, okay, he's starting to come back, but I blew out a knee, ACL meniscus, and it takes a full year. And remember, Chase has been hurt before. This is not the first injury. So you're looking at a guy, can he come back after an injury? It's not many Adrian Petersons out there that can come back and produce like nothing ever happens. It's different, Tony, you well know, being a defensive person. So this Commanders team drafted in the 5th round, KJ Henderson from Clemson. Now, most people are giving him a C as far as that goes, but he's supposed to be a pretty good player. So they're looking at this guy possibly coming in and seeing what they've got there in case, like David said, that they may not be able to sign both Chase and Sweat back. But my concern also is the linebacker position. Talk a little bit about that, because Hogan is gone to Pittsburgh, and Jamison, we know, played pretty good last year down the stretch. But is some holes still there at the linebacker? How do they operate around that? Because I think that they still need, and like I tell most people that I'm mad because Michael Parsons, I wanted him last year. And that's the type of linebacker I think that this Commanders team needs as far as a linebacker of that caliber. And they haven't had that in a long time.
You know, and you just take a look at it, and you're correct with that linebacker. Last year, most of them had that trouble. It's the middle of the zone, couldn't be covered. Tight ends were running free all the time. You never got the big hits that you wanted there. At the same time, I know people give him a low, but if you take a look at this edge rush, he runs a 4.6 40. Anytime you get a lineman running in that kind of a speed, you got something there. You can build on that. He also is very athletic. He has a good vertical jump, and I know people saying, well, this is not the track Olympics, but that's the only thing you have to go on. How athletic is he? Can he move? If they say one good thing about him is he moves his feet well, same thing they say about that offensive center. They say both of them got good feet, both of them got good movement, and he got speed that they can build something with him. That's the only reason I look at Chase, because I look at, if you have to get rid of, I know you're saying Sweat in him, but you got to look at Sweat has really improved, and each year he's improving more and more. He's a big man, and he's doing things that they need to do. And then one thing that you have to notice, when Chase was out, he played left and right defensive end. So I think if Chase doesn't come through big, not that he's not a good player, but he can help this team go further than they would have gone if he's traded or if they get 3 or 4 new players for him.
But Tony, we still haven't addressed the linebacker position.
Well, you know, I think maybe in is Wagner still out there? You know, they released him. And is he still out there?
I don't know if he's out there or not, but I doubt they're going to bring. I would doubt they bring in someone like that. Remember they signed Cody Barton from Seattle to replace the guy that I forgot his name. The guy to replace Cole Holcomb. So they replaced Cole Holcomb with Cody Barton. We'll see. I don't know. Like, we got to find out. But keep in mind also, look, most teams' bases now are not 3 linebackers. Most teams play 2 and have 5 defensive backs as their base. They play that 70% of the time now. Mm-hmm. So their base is not going to be 3 linebackers across like it used to be. It just doesn't. They don't play. Nobody plays that anymore with the proliferation of passing now. So, again, to draft a guy like they did in the second round in Martin, who can play the slot corner but can also come down as their the Buffalo nickel that they like to play. Those guys are going to be in that position too. Like Cam Curl is going to play some Buffalo nickel at some point. Maybe Derek Forrest plays some Buffalo nickel. So those guys, they have a lot of guys that can come down and play that position. The way that their defense is structured, a lot of their safeties come down and play that position anyway.
Hey, David, you just called out some names, Cam Curl, who they had to sign also, and right. You definitely don't want to let go of that caliber of player. St. Juice, you're talking about a guy that's long, lengthy also. Mm-hmm. So when you look across the whole defense for this team, they really upgraded a lot. The defensive line is solid. Yep. We talked about the linebackers play, and the safeties are just strong all the way around because you could intertwine those guys. And Kendall Fuller, even if he's not back there as the cornerback, you can kind of like bring him up, like you said, as far as that safety position. So when you look across the board, and you, Tony, even you too, when you look at this Commanders team going into this season, how do you see them from last year to this year? Has it been an upgrade?
Oh, it's definitely been an upgrade. You have to look at that because defensive backs were a problem last year. And if you take a look at them, they did have some that performed part of the time, but in the NFL, that does mean not for long. So if you look at it now, they have upgraded in this time, and I like the offensive line moves too. Also, you have to look at that second corner. The one thing they said about him, not just a slot, he can play safety. And he can also play the position where he get up on the line of scrimmage. So maybe that's what they're looking at him. And the other guy being small, I remember when they got Darrell Green, they got a Hall of Famer, and he was small. That doesn't matter. The guy runs a 4.43 or something like that. He has a 37-inch leap or whatever they call it. I mean, come on, man. What we have to look at, what we've been saying the last couple of years, is they did not address the positions they had. And one thing I was reading today, and they were saying they just hope they don't waste the good talent that they have on defense. I think they're going more forward with it, getting those cornerbacks, because they need a cornerback. They got 4 men up front that can get to the quarterback. You need those cornerbacks. But that's why I'm just kind of unhappy they didn't get a middle linebacker, because tight ends were killing us last year. Well, you got to have somebody that can not only play the run, but they got to cover that middle zone or that 2-man when you're pushing your man inside. They got to be able to do some things, and we didn't have that. Now, maybe they got a thought process and they can go out and get somebody, but they need to do something in that one place. But I still, rather than a B-, I still give them a B+. And I think if they'd have got the linebacker, I'd have gave them an A-. I think the draft was really good.
Yeah, no, the draft was fine. I don't have a problem with the draft, the people that they took in the draft. Look, you've got Chase Young again. I'll start with Chase. Healthy, finally, after a year and a half coming into next season. Now we'll see. We'll see if he becomes a dominant, destructive player again. They didn't have that last year on that side. Now they're Hill and Smith Williams. Those guys play fine. I'm not saying they played badly, but they weren't dominant players. Chase Young potentially can be a dominant player. That defensive line. And remember, they get Fedarian Mathis back this year. He missed all of last season, tore his ACL the first game of the year, was out the whole year. They signed John Ridgway off the street. He played really well for them on the defensive line. So their defensive line is stacked this year.
Yes, it is.
Their secondary is very good. They let Bobby McCain go. And that was surprising to me, but they really do believe in Forrest and Reeves and some of their other young safeties. So, they certainly improved themselves in terms of cornerback, in terms of the depth, because cornerback, it's a position where guys get hurt. So, you have some depth now for sure. Like Danny Johnson's your 4th or 5th cornerback. Yes. That's a good problem to have. So I expect their defense to be pretty stout next year going forward. If this young man Forbes can come in and be the playmaker that he was in college, I think they're going to be good. The question is the quarterback and offensive line. That is
exactly same one.
Those are the remaining questions to me.
That's the dagger, hey, David. That's the dagger that it's been. But I forgot about Derek Forrest, because this guy played ball last year, and Danny Johnson stepped up his game too. So when you look at that defense, it's something to reckon with. Being that Philadelphia just made theirs stronger with
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I was getting ready to say, I don't want to jump on that part yet, because we're going to get to the NFC East also to talk about who got picked there. But going back to the offensive side of the ball, everybody was talking about why didn't Washington pick a tight end? They got 4 tight ends in on this team already, and those 4 tight ends to me are pretty solid. I mean, they drafted one last year. So I don't even think that's an area that you have to look at as far as the tight ends right now, because it was so many other needs.
Yeah, no, they like Rodgers and they like Turner. They like Bates, who played pretty well the last couple of years. I guess I think they're bringing Logan Thomas back. I'm not 100% sure about that. But if they do bring him back, then look, we'll see. It's some things you just have to find out. You can't fix everything in one off season, so we'll see.
They have too many.
They like their tight end room. Well. All I can tell you is they like their tight end room. So we'll find out.
I think it's okay, but the thing is, can Logan Thomas stay well?
Well, Tony, you think about this is Logan Thomas was still nursing coming back from that injury. And he wasn't, to me, 100% all year. So you're going to have him basically with a year removed from that injury. Right. So if he's healthy, this is one of the top tight ends in football. And like David said, Rodgers, Turner, Bates, they are stacked there because they all bring different things to the game and everything. So I don't even think that was a position, because you can't cover everything in the draft. You can't address every problem because this team had so many needs in other areas. But going back to the draft, the 3rd round, as far as Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas, this is a guy that can play on both sides, which he's played on that. And if you're looking for offensive linemen, any team looking for offensive linemen, and with Washington, the problems they had last year as far as the injuries, moving a guy over to the left, to the right, and that's not their true position. What Stromberg is, he can be moved around and everything, and that's what makes him so key coming to this team is he's versatile as far as addressing some of those needs with injuries and everything.
Yeah,
That's the need of NFL now, and that's what they really want when they're looking at players. You got to have a player like him. He's 6'4", he weighs 294. He's not small, he's not big, but he's agile. He got good feet. You can move him inside, outside. He's played different positions. That's what you have to have on teams now. People that can step in. You can't just isolate a person and say, "Oh, you're a left corner, you're a left end." You have to be able to do something at every position. I think they have accomplished that. But you still go back to the one that hurt them the most last year. They didn't do anything. So I had to think in my head that they got something in mind. But when I look around at the NFC East, and I know you're coming to them in a little bit, Donna, all of them did well. I hate to say it. And, you know, I mean, Philadelphia just got stronger and stronger, and they've been bringing in people anyway. And now they paid this quarterback, and he got 4 female individuals. I think it's strong. That was a strong move for him. He could change the NFL for that. But they've shown that they think they got the ingredients to be the best. Even their stars, they brought in people behind them to take their place if they don't play well on the defensive line and other places. So if you take a look at Philadelphia, they did great. New York is always a little, you have to wonder what they're going to do or how it's going to work out. And Dallas, they're trying to get their defense even stronger. They're going to have to address that running back position even better. Getting a 7th rounder is not going to help anything. And they let their main guy go, but they are talking to him about coming back at a lesser amount of money.
Well, Tony, since you jumped on this, let's jump right into the NFC East. Let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles because, as you say, top defense in the NFL. They just got stronger. David and I was out at the draft, and when they said Jalen Carter from Georgia, the defensive tackle, and the Eagles were getting him, we always like, what? They're already solid across the line. Then they get Norman Smith, the linebacker from Georgia. Two guys from Georgia. It almost reminds you of Payne and Jonathan Allen coming from Alabama. And then they go down and get offensive tackle from Alabama, defensive back from Illinois, Sidney Brown, and then cornerback. And David, talk about the Philadelphia Eagles before we jump on the Giants and the Dallas. But I think that across the board, the Eagles had the best draft of anybody.
You hate to say that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. Look, Carter is a big talent. We all understand that he's a big talent and shouldn't have been there at 9. There's a reason he was there at 9, and that's what you have to keep that in mind. He was involved in an accident where people died. Now you have to keep that in mind. So you have some questions about him. Like, is he going to be? What kind of guy is he about? Taking care of himself and other people in his universe and in his orbit going forward. Smith is, I think, a great pickup at the end of the first round. But look, no question, Carter's talented, and they were already good on the defensive line. So they're strengthening a strength, and that's what good teams do. So they were already the team to beat. They're formidable. If you look at what the Commanders did, I think the Commanders did something smart in terms of who do we play in our division 2 times a year and, 6 times overall for the 3 teams. Well, we got to have people that can cover A.J. Brown. We got to have people.
Exactly.
The receivers the Eagles just have receiver after receiver. Well, we need cornerback after cornerback to be able to try and cover them. So you're trying to address needs that also help you in your division. So that's why I think, again, the Commanders draft I thought was pretty good at that top end. But no question, Philly had a really good draft again.
Again. And this is 2 years straight. This is 2 years straight that this team has got it right. That room up there, as far as their scouts, as far as their personnel that picks the draft and all that, they get an A+ for the last 2 years because it almost reminds you of Baltimore. Baltimore did a great job with Ozzie Newsome when he was the general manager. And Philadelphia keeps getting stronger and stronger. But Tony, you talked about the Giants. They did a pretty good job too. And David mentioned something that this whole division was looking at what the other was doing, because the Giants went out and signed Banks, the cornerback from Maryland. Again, what David was talking about. They signed a center from Minnesota, and then the wide receiver, because the Giants were in need of a wide receiver as far as that speed on the outside. And then they signed a running back from Oklahoma, Eric Gray. So talk about the Giants picks.
Well, if you look at the Giants picks and you look at what has transpired and you look around the league, some teams pick for need, some teams pick for want. And usually teams that pick for want already have a good stable. Giants have a pretty good stable. They fooled a lot of people last year. At the same time, they could show up their running backs more. They could show up offensive linemen. Their defense is pretty tough, but if you can get somebody always to step in, that's what the winning teams have done. That's what Washington haven't done in the last few years. They've gotten people to be up front, but if anything happened to them, nobody can come off the bench and make plays. So if you look at the Giants, if Barkley stays well, the quarterback grows, defense is good, and they keep the continuity they have now, they could be a pretty good team. I don't think right now they're as good as Washington or as good as Dallas. We know Philadelphia is the cream right now, but at the same time, all four teams are pretty close. And that's what you have to look at now. All four teams are pretty close. So the moves that they make between now and next fall is very important. But the one thing you have to realize, all these players that haven't played or been hurt or anything, they don't only have to heal physically, they got to heal mentally. And that's a big part of it. And when they get back out there, they're going to have a thought come. We used to always think if you get hurt, a lot of times because you're thinking about that injury. So that's what we have to look at Chase. Is he going to go out there and go reckless abandon like he was before? You look at different players, and then when you look at players that when they're moved and traded, it's all a mental thing. So when you look at right now, this is just the beginning of it. But if you look at the Giants, they started building this last year, and they're a pretty good team. So, yes, I rate them number 4, but they did well in the draft.
Well, they're number 4. Well, they beat Washington and tied Washington. So I'm not sure they're number 4.
That was an aberration. Okay.
So we'll see.
That was an aberration. I can't let them be ahead.
I like what they did there, and the center was rated very highly. So they had a solid draft. Nothing wrong with what they did. I thought, again, I thought Dallas had the worst draft of all the teams in the division, to be honest with you, because they were looking for a tight end. They didn't take Meyer. They wanted to take Kincaid, I guess. They couldn't get Kincaid. So, they had a need that they didn't address. Now we'll see how much that hurts them. But, I think you're right, Tony. I think the division is everybody behind Philly's pretty close, I think, to one another right now. But Philly's clearly the best team in the division. I don't think there's any question about that.
Hey, David, you go back to 2 picks for the Giants at need. The cornerback, as far as Banks, we know what kind of play that he had for Maryland, a solid guy. Everybody wanted Washington to grab him and everything. But, we're not in the draft room to figure out why they didn't pick him or even Christian Gonzalez. But like we said, that they've got a solid, I believe, player in Emmanuel Forbes. And when you talk to him, just the character, his background, I laugh because they say he has 10 siblings. I said, wow, I can identify with that because I have 10 siblings and everything. So he looked like he's grounded. But back to the Giants, they had a need at wide receiver, and Hyatt, from the wide receiver from Tennessee, seems to build that because he runs a 4.4 40. So he's a burner. They've got the speed. And then you look at the running back as far as Eric Gray. He was graded high. They said that he's good with zone and gap play, which is key too. So those are 2 positions that was needed by the Giants. So across the board, all 4 teams actually went after, except Dallas. Like you said, Dallas to me had the weaker of all of them because they didn't address key positions. But when you look at them, the division, like you said, everybody is so close. And it all depends on how these draft picks are going to pan out. And for the Washington Commanders, it also depends on the quarterback position and how that pans out. I think with Eric Bieniemy, it's going to be a nice change of pace to watch how he intertwines his knowledge, his background, and his offensive schemes into making the whole offense better. And Tony and David, We almost ran out of time, but you two have the last word.
I want to say that I don't know if Washington have laid and they're going to look at the quarterback and not make any moves. I don't know if it's a smart thing to put all your money in one bag right now and then throw it out there. I think they need to improve that position, have someone back there. I mean, they've lost their backups and everything. I hope that this young man comes through, but that's the key position. No matter what teams get, if that quarterback position is unsettled, they're going to have a problem.
Yeah, look, Charlie Casserly told me this 30 years ago. It's about the quarterback. It's not about anything else. It's about the quarterback. If you have a good quarterback, you have a chance. If you don't, you don't have a chance. We will find out if Sam Howell's a good quarterback or not. We don't, he's played one game. We have no idea. I will say this. I think he will be coached very well this season.
Yeah.
It's important for a young quarterback that's just learning in the league and in a system where the quarterback is designed to get the ball out quickly, right? He's got to make it. And Sam Howell has a very good arm, and he seems to make pretty good decisions under duress. So I think those are good traits going forward. We will find out if he can hold up over 17 weeks. The only way we'll find out is to put him out there.
And they did get a good backup.
And I was going to say, and you've got Jacoby Brissett if something goes wrong, who is a very solid backup quarterback. So, again, you can't address everything. This was not especially a great year for quarterbacks anyway. Nope. So I would hate, it would have been ridiculous for them to put capital into getting one of these quarterbacks this year. So we'll find out. But I think they have put a good enough team around him that if he plays solid, they should be a good football team next year.
But that word you said, if he does, that's the scary part.
He plays.
And that's why I say, yeah, they got a good backup, but is he a championship backup? I have to look at it. Have you got somebody that make and take him to the next level? That's the one thing, and I know Donna, we got to go, but that's one thing I like about Baltimore last year. Their backup quarterback showed that he could play in this league. And that's what we have to have.
Jacoby Brissett's shown he can play in this league. He's
been
in this league for a while now, so he's not no stumble bum. He's played.
But I might as well go on and do this. I'm coming out of retirement.
Okay, there you go.
They in trouble for sure now.
I'm working out feverishly.
There you go.
I want to see, can I get one of them defensive line jobs? So you guys, if fans, I want you to be with me. And you guys have to go through this journey with me.
So I will watch you.
It would be lifelong.
It would be. Let me just say, David, it would be a journey to go through. But Tony, as you said,
a long journey.
Yeah, we'll be back because we'll be back with another edition after the rookie mini camp that's going to take place next week. And as David knows, you can't tell too much in that. It's just them trying to get used to getting the little tidbits of the playbook and all of that. Can't tell much, but we'll be able to see a little bit. But Tony, as you say, we don't say goodbye.
We say in a minute.